Happy Halloween to everyone out there watching, and we get to take a look at a hopefully not so spooky NFL DFS slate for week number 9. Gonna be a tough week because a lot of the guys we like are in the mid-range and not as much value as of right now. So our job for today is to dissect which of those mid-range plays are the priorities, try to identify some guys we like in the value tier if they exist, and get you ready for week number 9 NFL DFS, breaking down our top picks at each position. Welcome on to the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Thursday by Brandon Gdula. Check him out on X at Gdula13. Find his work over at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon, week number 9 is coming in hot. Happy Halloween to you. How you doing today?
I'm good. I think you covered it with the slate. My main concerns of a lack of value, but outside of that, it's good. It's late October, but I was able to get out, play 9 holes yesterday. It was nice weather. Just dark too soon, but other than that, I mean, how can you complain too much?
I can complain because I can't wear hoodies right now. It is too hot for that, and that makes me very upset. Tomorrow, it'll be in the 50s here in Chicago, so that'll help. But I'm going to complain for now that it's not quite cold enough for my preferences for October. Do you have a Halloween costume you have planned for this year?
Yeah, like yes and no. Nothing for Halloween specifically, but okay. My wife and I went to some wrestling shows this weekend, Halloween Havoc, and Monday Night Raw in Hershey. We went as Jey Uso and Rhea Ripley. So yes, but not from here. What about you? You and Rosa?
No, she has her hot dog costume that she'll wear to gawk at trick-or-treaters tonight. Okay. Rosa is a dog, to clarify.
I guess I should have.
Gawking at trick-or-treaters, I realized that sounded weird if anyone thought that Rosa was a human, but she is a dog. She is dead asleep right now, trying to prepare and get herself, because that's usually her nap time, is trick-or-treating time. So she has to be like
once a year she naps on trick-or-treat time.
No, she naps every day at that time. It's just, that's how it goes. She naps most of the time. In fact, she's snoring a little bit right now, but we'll...
Are you like a big Halloween guy? I don't know if we've ever really...
I like the vibes of Halloween. Does that count?
Like what vibe? Like the weather or like
the spooks? I like the weather, like the spookiness.
Are you like a horror movie guy too?
No. We did watch Midnight Mass, which is not a horror movie. It's like a weird kind of creepy TV show this year, but that was good. So... I enjoy it, but I can't really do horror that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
going to ask you about horror. I know better than to ask that. The horror could be the value plays this week. Hopefully not, because there are some options we could potentially have this.
I think you're muted if you can hear me.
All right. How about now? Now we're back?
Yeah. He had a little crossed out microphone icon too.
Who would possibly do that? That's crazy. Anyway, we are going to go through some potential value plays for this week, try to identify where we can potentially find value later on. Also dig into the mid-range, because I do think there are a lot of pretty high quality options there as well. And if that means if we do get at least some value, we're going to be okay. And I think that can be a fun setup for this week as well. So today we're going to break down top value plays, where we're looking in the mid-range, our top priorities there, and so much more to get you ready for NFL DFS in week number 9. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. You can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. You can also watch a video version of this podcast over on Spotify. If you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and reviews. We are here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern. We're also live on YouTube at that time every week. Shout out to those of you watching YouTube right now. Leave us a thumbs up there. Watching after the fact as well, leave us in the comments who you're playing for NFL DFS for week number 9. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications to get notified as we go live each and every weekday here on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. Later on today, talking to Dubs Anderson about his best bets for week number 9. That'll be 4:30 p.m. Eastern on the YouTube page. Again, 4:30 p.m. for this week with Dubs, breaking down biggest games across week number 9. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 $100 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch, in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more all on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, and for Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit fanduel.com/RG in Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's begin things here with the slate overview for week number 9. And Brandon, to me, the strength of this slate is in the mid-range. And I want to be in the mid-range as often as possible. The mid-range being Aaron Jones, $7,500. Pretty in Devon Achane, 78, like DeAndre Swift in the mid-7,000 range too. Similar thing at wide receiver because Chris Olave, 71, with Derek Carr back off the shelf. So I want to live in the mid-range. Evan Engram, 64, a tight end as well. I want to live in the mid-range, and I need a little bit of value to enable me to get there. But I'm optimistic someone pops up to allow us to live in that mid-range more often this week. So to me, the defining characteristic of this slate is how good that mid-range is and how often I want to be there. What stands out to you when you look at this week 9 slate?
I think really being receptive to where value could open up, and there's a couple places, but I don't want to fall into, hey, this is the only value play that exists, so I'm going to play that player. I want to like that player. I want to like the situation. I want to like, after all that, then still like the salary. You can kind of go with that full balanced build and have salary for one stud, whether that's a Jalen Hurts, who might throw the ball 10 times but have 10 goal line carries. I don't necessarily think it's going to be Jamar Chase, but we'll talk more about every player. But last week we were trying to figure out which of the studs to get to. We want 2 studs because we had a lot of value, etc. We got to figure. I think yes, the value, but on the flip side, if we're going balanced, we got to make sure we talk about the studs and say, I'm okay not being there as much because of this. And if you can't do that, a purely balanced build could be the wrong way to go. So I think there's a lot to talk about. I think just lineup construction in general is going to be the name of the game this week for us.
It is, and I am very okay with that because that is a fun discussion for me as always. And I do like a slate where we got mid-range guys with upside, and we do definitely, that's one thing this slate definitively does have. Let's begin things by talking about the key injuries to note across week number 9. And the first one is not an injury, but the Panthers did trade Deontay Johnson to the Ravens. Johnson should be able to debut this week against the Broncos, but his role likely limited in his debut. So does he impact your view as Zay Flowers at all here as the Ravens take on the Broncos?
Not really. Josina Anderson said that it's not expected to change the fact that Zay Flowers is the wide receiver 1 and Rashad Bateman's the longest
tweet of all time.
Yeah, it was. I think she said like long tweet incoming or something, but
she did not lie.
Zay is always he's always interesting when we want to be there with Baltimore. If the passing volume's up, he's so clearly the wide receiver 1. He can have great games, but if they play from ahead, he's going to be relegated to just sort of whatever. Denver's defense is one that I respect a good amount right now, so I'm not convinced that I need to go out of my way to get to Zay Flowers. So no, I don't think long term it's going to change me on Zay. I'm, as much as I want to be a Rashad Bateman fan, I'm not really there in general. I think it's going to hurt him long term. I think any the pulse we're seeing from Mark Andrews, all the touchdowns, that gets harder. So I think it's going to help the offense, going to help Lamar, help Derrick Henry get into the red zone more. So yes and no, it changes stuff. But for this week, I'm not really on the pass catchers to begin with. What about you?
Same. It's a really tough matchup with the Broncos. I like the over in this game, so I don't mind the Ravens, especially if they're going to go overlooked. Especially with Flowers, the big strength of the Broncos secondary is Patrick Surtain, but he's kind of a guy who shuts down bigger receivers for the most part because he's a bigger dude. I think that Flowers can be okay against him relative to what other receivers might do against him. So I don't mind Zay. I prefer other guys for sure. Again, Olave's in that range, so he's fine, but not a priority for me on this slate. I would use him with Lamar if I wind up getting there, but not a standalone play to me. Go ahead.
They do they're tied for the slate high.
Yeah.
An implied team total.
Yeah.
I don't want it to sound dismissive.
And I did take the over, so there are paths here.
I do think there's a reality where Zay Flowers is one of the best receiver values of the week, but I could also see this one just sort of having dispersed target shares, and maybe again the real play would be Lamar and or Derrick Henry. So
yep, I agree. Talking about the Carolina Panthers, they're going to start Bryce Young again this week. Jonathan Brooks full in practice, meaning he should be able to make his debut. I'm not touching Chuba Hubbard with that being the case. But are you going to any of the pass catchers with Bryce Young starting and Deontay Johnson traded?
No, I mean, they were without Deontay last week. It was pretty dispersed target shares. I don't think there's enough touchdown equity here. So again, and this is with the caveat that we're seeking value. We want to find value. I don't think this is the place I'm going to do that.
I might. I know, surprising, but the Saints secondary is super, super banged up right now. Marshawn Lattimore has a hamstring injury. Paulson Adebo broke his leg. So things are not great there. And they did move the ball a bit at times against Denver, better than I expected them to. We talked about betting them to get shut out last week. So they did somewhat exceed expectations. And if we're talking about value at wide receiver, Jalen Coker's salary $5,200. He had 4 deep targets last week. He actually has shown some yardage upside in a couple of games now. He had 68 yards there, 78 this past week with a touchdown. And then Xavier Legette, 57. He had 3 deep targets last week. And again, they're at home facing a pretty soft defense. I don't want to go here, but I at least want to filter in the Panthers as a consideration when we're desperate for value. I don't want to cross them off. If using Coker or Legette is what allows me to get to Alvin Kamara at times, because he's probably one of my top stud priorities this week, I'm okay with that. So I want to at least be receptive to Coker and Legette specifically.
Yeah, this is basically the situation that I was alluding to of I don't want to talk myself into plays that I'm not that excited about. You're right. Coker had some downfield work. I have him with 5 targets, at least 10 yards downfield. I think you're using 16 plus air yards. He had 3 red zone targets as well. I get it, but I'm trying to talk myself out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to avoid it, but reality may not allow me to. So
I mean, they both had ADOTs of over 15 yards last week. Mm-hmm. They're kind of the only names, I guess, but yeah, you were right to mention them. I think I was trying to do it for myself so that I don't get too excited there.
I'm receptive. That's about as far as I can go, but receptive is higher than usual. So there's that. Derek Carr seems likely to return from a 3-game absence this week, facing off against those Panthers. Kendre Miller did not practice due to a hamstring injury. You'll talk about the Saints in the trend section. Colts switching to Joe Flacco as the starter at quarterback. Josh Downs and Michael Pittman missed practice Wednesday due to the same ailments that have held them out of practice in previous weeks. So they should be good to go. We'll talk about the Colts in the trend section. Other side of that game, TJ Hawkinson likely to make his debut this week. He was full in practice on Wednesday. I had to have a hard time getting to Hawkinson in his first game off of a torn ACL, I believe MCL as well, assuming his snaps are limited here. How does his return impact your view of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison for the Vikings?
A couple things. Doesn't impact me at all with Justin Jefferson.
Agreed.
Not going to make that mistake. Last year, they had 7 games together with at least 25% of the snaps. Jefferson left early in one of them. So I'm ruling that out. But Jefferson had a 27% target share in those games for 113.7 yards per game. Hawkinson had a 19% target share. He was at 54 yards per game. And Addison came in at a 15% target share for 52 yards per game. But so I'm not really there with Addison, although we kind of have like a squeaky wheel situation.
Yep.
3-3 coming up. But yeah, Jefferson, no change. If anything, it's probably going to be helpful because Hawkinson's a good football player.
Yeah.
The thing that I think I'm going to be higher on Hawkinson than you are, in the sense that you're shaking your head for.
No, go ahead. Sorry. It's instinctive. I'm sorry.
He's been getting yeah, anytime I say something, shake your head. Okay. He's been getting in limited practices. I was surprised going back to see how far this started, but he got a limited practice in week 5 on Friday.
They were in London then, and they activated him then, which is why I think that like they knew they wanted to wait till after the Thursday game, because then it forced them to activate him that Friday. So like, yes, he's been practicing for a full 21 days.
Yeah, so he's been getting in limited practices, finally full. I think there is at least a case to be made to getting there for Hawkinson, because he's what, in the mid 5s?
He's 56, yeah.
Sunday Night Hammer potential as well. I think there's a case to be made. I'm not sitting here saying he's my tight end 1, but I think I am a little bit higher, assuming that he's not going to be as scaled back. It kind of feels like he could have been ready to play, but they were like, we got this weird schedule, we got the bye, let's just wait. And they were winning games. So I would be surprised if he's like severely limited, but I think I made my point here where I'm very receptive to him.
Okay, I think that makes sense. It's a good week at tight end, which is part of why I don't feel the need to force it, but like he is low salaried, so I understand your inclination as well. Jordan Love didn't practice Wednesday due to his groin issues. Sounds like he wants to play through it, and I'm leaning towards thinking that he does. Josh Jacobs did not practice with an ankle injury, said that he'll be good to go by Sunday. Packers pretty banged up, but it's a critical game here against the Lions at home. What's your view of the Packers entering that game on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm assuming Love plays as well. He's missed time. This team has been weirdly like okay with Malik Willis, but a completely different team in terms of, fantasy football output. I just am starting to feel as though like I love Jaden Reed. He's a great football player. The salary's down to 73. We've got other options.
Yep. He's
Romeo
still
Dobbs,
oversalaried for what he should be.
I think so. For as good as he is, his role isn't that good. Dobbs runs a lot of routes. He is kind of their clear wide receiver 1. I think he's got, some upside, but not really slate altering upside. So I don't feel the need to overextend there. I think the most interest I would have would be like a healthy Josh Jacobs, but probably not going to get there either.
Yeah, I'm higher on Dobbs than you are, I think, which is a shock given our previous situations on him. He's shown yardage upside this year. He always has touchdown upside, 85 yards or 2 touchdowns. He could give me both. So I think that for $63, he'll be my consideration set in the low 6,000 rated receiver. Not my favorite guy down there. A couple guys I like a little bit more, but like he's definitely in there, and I'll probably be in that range a lot just because if I want to build around the 7,000 range or running back, I'm going to be in the low 6,000 range, and he'll be a guy I turn to when I'm in that range as often as I likely will be.
Dobbs or DJ Moore, 6,600 at Arizona.
Slight lean towards Dobbs. That $300 might actually go a long way.
Okay. I think I'd go more there pretty comfortably. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 6,500 versus the Rams. Okay.
I'd rather get by a bus. Get by a bus. I don't care if DK plays or not. I'm not using JSN. Absolutely not.
All right.
He's a full cross off for me now.
Calvin Ridley, 6,200?
No.
No? Just flat out no? Or no. Just no compared to Dobbs?
I don't want to.
Okay.
I know he had
you're not wrong.
targets last week, but
Yeah, and yeah, I think they also said they weren't gonna like force him the ball and then force him the ball, which was super sick. Which is why I love following coach notes.
Correct.
Final name because well, there's Jalen Waddle too, but Jordan Addison. Do you actually like him at all? Do you think he'll get more involved?
Prefer Dobbs.
Okay.
I think the only person I put above him in that range is Sutton, and then Waddle's in that range as well for me. I think it's Sutton, Dobbs, and Jalen Waddle.
Okay, so this is a situation where we actually kind of agree, but just came at it from different perspectives.
Correct. You went up.
I like Dobbs, but yeah.
Yeah. T. Higgins didn't practice Wednesday due to a quad issue. Zach Taylor called him day to day. I think he's potentially going to play this week based on what Taylor has said. What's your view of the Bengals as they take on the Raiders as 7.5-point favorites?
Yeah, they've got a big implied team total as favorites, but with or without T. Higgins, Jamar Chase just hasn't had like massive target shares. He's had massive games, but they're largely due to big plays and a lot of touchdowns. It's not lost on me. He has incredible single game upside. Just like from a business case standpoint, it's really hard to like go at someone with his market shares at that salary. It leaves no room for error, but the workload itself kind of leaves a lot of room for error if he doesn't break a big play or have a touchdown. Now, again, you're correct where we should expect his target shares to improve, but how long is it going to take and how many times and this really isn't a week where you have 9,500 to play with.
Yeah.
So there's FOMO, but I might not even get there myself.
Yeah. I'm very high on T if T is full by Friday, which I think is at least within the range of outcomes for Higgins. $7,500, not bad for him at all. If he can't go, Mike Gesicki, $5,400. You talked about, I think he had a 21% target share in games without T this year. 73 yards this past game, 91 in another game without T. So he could do well at 54. I would like that. And then I'm still receptive to Chase Brown. I don't think I should be, but I am. $63 for him. He got outsnapped by Moss barely this past week, but still playing a lot in the red zone, still getting something at least. The Raiders defense stinks, so I'm receptive to Brown and we'll have a non-zero number of shares. Okay with Gesicki if Higgins can't go. Good with Higgins if he's full by Friday. Not really getting to Chase, so I'm higher on probably Brown than you, but it sounds like we're in the same realm on Chase and Higgins.
Yeah, you are higher on Chase Brown. It's kind of similar to Jamar Chase in a sense of like, I understand the upside. I think he's a good football player, but if it's hard to overperform the workload to a substantial degree. As a running back, you just need like big plays or multi-touchdowns to go your way.
Yeah.
What about Joe Burrow though? Because quarterback is difficult this week. We've got some big names with some big ceilings. It's not the easiest to get there. Jalen Hurts 93, Josh Allen 9,000, Jaden Daniels 87, with Lamar 89. Could you consider Burrow at 79 instead of
Higgins
those
plays? Yes.
Okay. Because I think we should.
Yeah.
But we need some value.
Yeah, we do. And I would be willing to use him if Higgins plays. The Raiders are 20th against the pass, 19th against the run. So a beatable team for sure. And a team that I'm okay with the Bengals. Burrow, fine with. Okay with Brown. Okay with Gesicki. Would love Higgins full by Friday. That's where I stand with the Bengals. DK Metcalf didn't practice Wednesday. Sounds like he still has a good shot to suit up on Sunday. We'll talk about that game against the Rams in the bookmaker section. For the Jags, Christian Kirk done for the year. Broken collarbone there. Not fun. But Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, Travis Etienne, all limited Wednesday. That should give them a good shot to all suit up this week, especially Etienne. They said on Monday, I believe, that they were pretty optimistic he'd be able to go. Any interest in the Jags against the Eagles here?
Yeah, so I mean, there should be opportunity here. Evan Ingram should be the target leader. So you're kind of getting like a wide receiver one at 6,400 while filling tight end. It's going to be hard not to want to go to Ingram primarily when I'm building lineups. He's got both touchdown and yardage upside, at least as I view him. The receivers are interesting. Brian Thomas is really breaking out. I don't like we have enough receiver options where I don't want to overextend for players who are not 100%. Gabe Davis, though, 5,700, has a lot of end zone targets, good red zone share. Not convinced of massive yardage upside for the big play man. But if we get everyone playing other than Kirk, who's out for the year, I kind of still only feel good about Ingram.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I just don't have high enough expectations for this offense. They just traded their left tackle, just lost Christian Kirk. Like, that's a bummer as far as like scoring expectations for them. Thomas's salary, I wish it were a bit lower.
Yeah.
Like, he's 100 less than Olave. I know we keep coming back to Olave, but like, he's kind of like the benchmark of like an elite play this week to me outside of Aaron Jones. So that's a tough salary. Gabe, I agree with you. I don't think the yardage is going to be there. Maybe it improves without Kirk, but he also didn't have upside from a yardage perspective when Ingram was out, which he should have in theory. So I really think it's mostly Ingram for me here.
Final question here. If we don't get Davis or Thomas, I don't think we'll get a game without both of them.
Yeah.
Would that raise you on the other one? And you're ahead of me here, but Parker Washington had a pretty good roll last week, 5,400.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the what if scenario?
Yeah. If we get one of Thomas or Davis out, it'd bump me up in the other one. So that would help for sure. I still don't think I'll get to Washington because his salary is 54. I would need that to be like in the 4K, like 49-ish, kind of like Joe McMillan last week, where he was $4,900. It's like, okay, sure, fine. But that $500 goes a long way this week. He kind of got priced up in anticipation of all the injuries. So I don't think there's enough there for me to get to Washington personally this week.
I mostly agree. Yeah. It's similar to like the Panthers receivers where I don't actually want to.
Yeah.
But I'd prefer the Panthers receivers to Washington.
Same. Dallas Goedert missed another practice for the Eagles on Wednesday. He has missed each of the past 2 games, and either one of A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith has gone off in both those. How are you in those 2 guys if we get no Goddard again this week?
This is such a fun team because it's 4 guys.
Right.
And they all have kind of slate altering upside in their own ways, but the salaries are high now. AJ Brown's target share has been amazing in every single game. He's 9,000. Devonta Smith's salary is 7,800. I think Devonta Smith's a great player, but that's getting close to the peak there. Saquon at 94. He's still got a good overall red zone opportunity share, but Jalen Hurts is 40% of the red zone carries.
Right. And
red zone carries, red zone plays, they're a bit different than the goal line stuff. So would it surprise me at all if Barkley scores twice? No, but at 94, am I banking on it? Not exactly. So
would you prefer Saquon at 94 or Kamara at 88?
Kamara at 88.
I agree. Would you prefer Jalen Hurts 93 or Josh Allen 9,000?
I think I should probably honestly just be Hurts.
I lean Allen, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. I
also I'm not a Bills fan. I'm wearing a Bills hat. Just like to clarify whenever that stuff happens. Yeah. I'm not a fan of any team.
Yeah, I think the Eagles' salary is going to be tough to get to this week, so I would like more pushback, but they do have upside. So
you can build. We're talking about that balanced lineup. It's hard to include Achane with it, but if you got Nick Chubb as your RB3 and some balanced receivers, you can get up to that stud quarterback. Do you think Hurts or Allen are worth it?
Yes.
Okay. I'll figure that out more as we get to this.
The issue is I think they are worth it.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate part of the slate is I wish I could be lower on them, but I can't. Tyrone Tracy is in concussion protocol and didn't practice Wednesday. Sounds like he could get a limited practice Thursday, though, which would give him at least a shot at suiting up. I still kind of think he's going to sit just because, that concussion didn't look great on Monday. How would you view Tracy, though, at $6,200 against the Commanders if he is able to go?
He would really help out this week. His role has been great. He's a good football player, a lot of yardage upside. Touchdown equity with the Giants is always something to call into question. Like their implied team total is 20.5 right now. It's like bottom 6 for the week. It's below average, but the salary helps account for it. The yardage upside, is accounted for in this low salary, or I guess actually, like in a sense, not fully accounted for. So basically, what I'm getting at is there's room for him to outperform even without scoring.
Yeah,
which you don't get very often from value running backs. So if Tracy's full by Friday, how does that change things for you?
Like if he's able to go, I'd be
Can he be full by Friday after a concussion?
Yeah, if he's limited today, he can be full on Friday.
Okay,
yeah. If he clears, then I'm probably going to be pretty aggressive with him, I think.
So we're talking like RB1 or RB2, because we love Aaron Jones, but
he'd be up there with Jones, yes. And honestly, given how much I need value, he might wind up being the guy to whom I have the highest exposure.
A full by Friday, Tyrone Tracy or Nick Chubb.
Tracy
against. Yeah, the thing for Chubb is that they're playing a tough defense, and
Washington just got wrecked by DeAndre Swift, who's been very good recently. So that's not like a shot at them, but like they did just get destroyed on the ground.
I think I'd lean Tracy as well, but that's the one injury that I keep going back to, is like, that's the one that we might get, maybe not, who knows.
Yeah.
Would you do, I already know this answer. Would you play a different Giants running back if Tracy's out?
Devin single digits will not do it for me. $6,100. He'd need to be $3,100 for me to get there.
Gosh.
I'm not doing it.
All right.
Single digits is back, but I hope he's not. Enjoy your bench spot, Devin. Amari Cooper limited in practice with a wrist injury on Wednesday. He was quiet in his second game with the Bills. Now kind of banged up, though. He wasn't supposed to practice Wednesday at all, so that was at least a positive to see him out there. We'll talk about the Bills in the bookmakers section. Drake May able to get into limited practice on Wednesday, despite being concussion protocol. That means there's a chance he clears by Sunday. If May goes, Brandon, any Patriots for you against the Titans?
No.
Agreed. Tony Pollard didn't practice Wednesday for the Titans due to a foot injury. We hadn't heard about this before, so could just be maintenance because he had a lot of work recently. Calvin Ridley also missed practice with a shoulder injury. Tyjae Spears limited due to his hamstring injury. The Titans are banged up, but they're somehow favorites. It's because they're facing the Patriots, likely without Drake May. But anybody on the Titans stand out to you?
Calvin Ridley does. With his target share last week, they got rid of DeAndre Hopkins. There's opportunity. He's a good football player. If you give him double-digit targets at 6,200, there is room for that against the secondary that doesn't necessarily rate out well according to Number Fire's metrics. I did gloss over the Patriots entirely. I will point out that Ramondre Stevenson has a good role again, but I'm not going to get there. I'm just noting it so that I'm doing my due diligence here.
Fair to point out.
Big J journalism here. 6,800 for his role isn't bad in a vacuum, but I think that there are numerous other backs I'd rather play this week. So
agreed.
We're both out on the Patriots still, even though I submitted that correction for the record. So no Ridley for you.
I guess. I don't know.
Like, what's the difference between Calvin Ridley and Courtland Sutton to you?
Courtland Sutton has a better quarterback.
Okay, that I agree
and
with.
A better matchup and a better game. Like the total for the Courtland Sutton game is 46 and 40. Where am I looking here? The game is 46 and a half, and the total for Calvin Ridley's game is 37. I know that the implied, or 38 and a half. I know their implied total for Tennessee is higher, but like game environment matters overall, and I'd rather take a swipe at a receiver in a game with a 46 and a half point total than one in a game with a 38 and a half point total.
I don't
also, Courtland Sutton's good at football.
You don't think Calvin Ridley's good at football?
I plead the fifth.
Jeez.
And again, quarterback matters too. That's part of it. Also, weather's bad in Nashville. Do you need more reasons? Can I keep going? I think so. Calvin Ridley to me is Javonte Williams from last week, where it's like, fine, I'll use him. I don't want to. I don't think he's very good, but I'll use him because I feel like I have to. And Javonte Williams stunk. I don't want to be forced into guys I don't think are good at football.
Those are the plays that I want to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Calvin Ridley's as bad as you do. He's got 9 downfield targets. He had more downfield targets than the rest of the team combined.
That's the issue. His quarterback can't complete downfield passes usually. Like he did get more intermediate looks this week. Like he had more
I
short
include
targets.
like the more intermediate stuff too.
He did get more intermediate looks this week because like he was just a deep ball merchant and they would all be incomplete and it wouldn't matter. He was like the prairie yards king. And now he's getting a bit more intermediate stuff. So like it is a better situation than it was, but it's still a 38.5 point total in wind with a terrible quarterback.
All right.
So I don't want to go there personally.
All right.
Instead, let's talk about some games that actually have good totals for this week. Let's begin things with the highest total on the slate. That is in Atlanta for the Cowboys and the Falcons. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook total for this game is 51.5. Falcons favored by 2.5 in this one. Micah Parsons still not practicing for the Cowboys, so the Cowboys defense should continue to be atrocious. Falcons have concentrated usage, an efficient offense, and a good matchup. So we also bring back with CeeDee Lamb. Probably one of the better studs this week. I prefer Kamara, but I do like Lamb. I like this game a lot. Where are you on this one?
I do like it, yet I feel lower on it than I want to be.
Let's start off for you.
Let's start off on the top. At the top, how many QBs is this game for you?
I would consider.
I could see Cousins. I could see it 0, 2, or 1. Right? I don't know why I listed them in that order, but
Dak at 81 is a little bit higher than I want him to be.
Yeah.
Like I think he should be in the mid 7,000 range and he's not. So I lean towards it being like a 0.75 quarterback game with Cousins being the 0.75. Maybe it's a half Cousins, 0.25 Dak.
Okay. That's never great in terms of overall stackability. That does not mean that if you don't like both quarterbacks or at least love one of the quarterbacks that you just don't get there, but it does contextualize things on a larger scale for me with how much I like a game. I kind of agree with you. I'm more likely to play Kirk Cousins at home than I am Dak, even though it's indoors. Just I historically have been like higher on Dak than I think public perception, but that's a little hard at this point. So Cousins does have that 300-yard upside, multi-touchdown upside. He's got concentrated target shares.
Yep.
Drake London at 79. It's
a little high for his role.
High for a guy who doesn't necessarily jump out as just a traditional like yardage monster.
Yep.
He's got one game over 75 yards. Mm-hmm. He's scoring at a pretty high rate. That's tough. Darnell Mooney is a fun football player. Mm-hmm. His target shares kind of like stabilizing a little bit. His salary also kind of on the higher end for where I'd want him. No.
85 yards in 3 games. So he's gotten the 85. He's gotten 2 touchdowns. He's met the criteria. He gets deep targets from a quarterback who is not Mason Rudolph or Will Levis, a quarterback who can actually complete them. Darnell Mooney's overall target share this year is scrolling. Did I erase it? What a dummy. I did erase it. I have it in my notes though. Darnell Mooney's target share this year, don't tell me, is 23%, 48% deep target share, 19% inside the red zone because London has a 40% red zone share or something like that. I think Mooney 67 is better than DJ Moore, who you asked about earlier. I think he's a really good mid-range play. And a Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney stack goes a long way towards getting me some of the value I need this week. I'm open to it.
Yeah. Drake London's red zone share, by the way, is 44%, and he's got
insane.
a 40% end zone target share.
It's insane.
Like market share wise, London's the wide receiver 1, but at salary and kind of from a ceiling standpoint, I would rather go Mooney.
Agreed.
I still think I'd rather want him at like 64, 65, which is a little splitting hairs, but
sure.
When you get to 67, 68, I start comparing you to the 7K range a bit. Sure. So that's kind of where I am. I do think he stands out in the 6K range. I'm substantially more likely to play him than London. I don't know if I'm going to get to Kyle Pitts, which could be a mistake, but he has had some big plays. You want big play potential from every player, especially tight ends. The yardage is actually really good. But like
it feels like every big play he has is a broken coverage. And I don't know, is there a next gen stats measure for that? Like, wide the F open? Like, because he would grade out as like the number 1 pass catcher in football if it's like on broken coverages. I'm sure that exists somewhere.
I mean, we could dig into like the separation at target stuff, but yeah, I mean, like he's got basically like an 18% target share the last like 4 weeks. It's fine.
Yeah.
I probably should get here and just maybe what happens this week is you build around the mid range, like the traditional core plays, and then find these games to stack and hope that they go off. So like I'm higher on Pitts due to the game environment than I would be otherwise.
Yep.
But I don't love it.
He has shown me that he can get yardage upside, which is kind of what I want. So he can do it. I prefer Mooney, but I do think that they're pretty fun. Do you want to talk Bijan Robinson? Because the 8,000 range at running back, although like I want to build in the mid range because I think that we can, 8,000 range is pretty good too. That 8,000 range includes Kenneth Walker the third at 8,000, JT $8,200, Bijan Robinson 85, Jahmyr Gibbs 86, Alvin Kamara 88, Kyren Williams 89. Where does Bijan stack up for you in that 8,000 range if we decide we want to get in a stud this week?
It's a lot of names. Did you include Kyren?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's hard to go anyone over Kyren because
his yardage sucks.
Yeah, but he gets like 60% of the red zone work.
Yeah.
And that helps overcome a lot. And that the Rams looked good with Puka and Cooper Kupp back.
Yeah.
I'd still, despite that, I'd probably go Kamara first.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Kyren, and then Bijan.
Yeah. I'd probably go Bijan over Kyren. That's probably stupid. I don't know. But I like this game a lot. I love this matchup for him at home against this Cowboys defense that has been abhorrent against the rush this year. And he gets me a lot of yardage juice.
Bijan at home indoors versus Kyren on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so like Kamara is clearly ahead of them though.
I think so.
Yeah. His target shares are like phenomenal. No,
they're getting healthy again. They're facing the Panthers. Yeah, it's pretty sick. So I lean Kamara, but like I do like Bijan as my number 2 in that range personally.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Okay, Cowboys side of things, CeeDee Lamb. Like we kind of got to build around him at 91 if we're going to get there. I don't know if I'll be able to this week. If value pops up, I would like to get there because like his target share just keeps on creeping up. It's still not amazing for the full season at 27% relative to his salary. But 14 and 17 targets the past 2 games specifically. I don't know. Among like the priorities, I prefer Kamara, prefer Bijan in the upper range, prefer Justin Jefferson over Lamb as well. So that probably means I'll have Lamb and I will have Lamb only in game stacks. Does he span beyond that for you?
I don't think he can. It's really hard. And if you're going to if you're going to build CeeDee Lamb into lineups and we don't get Tyrone Tracy, even with Nick Chubb in this lineup. Cortland Sutton. Like, frankly, there aren't any receivers in the 5K range that I love right now. He fits well, like he makes sense with Kirk Cousins to save some salary.
Yeah.
But even Darnell Mooney's hard to get. Like, you kind of can't get back there unless you're going in like the low 5K range at tight end, like a Mike Gesicki, which could work.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think he's stack dependent. I don't envision really stacking him with Dak very much due to salary constraints.
Yeah.
So Arrow's up on CeeDee Lamb for sure.
Yeah.
He could torch us. It's hard to prioritize.
Yeah, I agree with that. So game stacks only for me. Will you get to Jalen Tolbert or Jake Ferguson in this game?
So I like Jake Ferguson a bit more than you do. I know the matchup isn't phenomenal, but it's overall game environment that we're talking about. I'll throw the tight ends in a good game environment and tight ends who are good, I think, and who can score and have some juice. His target shares have been pretty solid week after week. 22, 27, 17, 9, and 22% since week 2. You could do worse than plugging in Ferguson in this type of matchup. Main issue is the salary is high, so it's game stack dependent.
Yeah, I don't know. Your rationale makes sense, but not super high there. Tolbert, he's not off the table for me at 59 just because the game environment is so good. He gets deep targets. I think he's a pretty good football player. I know it hasn't really panned out super well for him recently, but he can get deep targets.
Calvin Ridley.
He's a better football player than Calvin Ridley. Sorry, it leaked out. That's a Slack only take.
Yeah.
But no one's watching. We're good. It's all fine. Yeah. We're not broadcasting this out to YouTube, Spotify, Apple, etc. We're good. I would be okay with Tolbert. It's a probably shouldn't do situation, but if I need it in order to get to Bijan, I'm fine with it, I guess. So that's kind of where I settle in on that one.
Where would you rather go, like Xavier Legette or Jalen Tolbert, once you factor in game environment and offense?
Tolbert.
He doesn't earn a lot of targets. He runs a lot of routes.
He doesn't
earn some high leverage targets.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe something like that is just kind of what we need to end up doing.
Have low exposure to a bunch of different guys down there and make your core be the higher salary guys. I think that's probably what to settle on for this week. I'm not going to ask you about the Cowboys running backs because I respect our show and I respect you. Let's talk instead about our second game of the week. That is the Dolphins at the Bills. Spread here is 5.5. Total is 49.5. I actually think that total is fair. I've got it right around, I think 49.3 for this week. So arrows up on this game. Tua Tagovailoa's second game back looked good enough in the first game, I thought. I love the Bills side here. I think they should be favored by a tiny bit more than 5.5. Honestly, kind of annoyed that one shift. It is minus 120 on the 5.5, so it's basically 6.5. But we have some bringbacks from the Dolphins. What's your view of stacking in this game?
Yeah, I mean, where do you want to start? Dolphins?
Let's start Dolphins. Let's do it.
All right. Not exactly what you wanted to see in Tua's return last week from an overall standpoint, but Devon Achane continues to be the RB1A, whatever you want to call it there. He did lose those 2 touchdowns to Raheem Mostert, but he's got phenomenal yardage upside and a target share that just kind of puts him in that sort of Alvin Kamara type role. Alvin Kamara East or Southeast, if you want to go that route, which not many teams would be more Southeast, but 78 is a bit, I think it's sort of at the high end for having a little bit of a concern and being so big play dependent outside of like from a carry standpoint. I don't think he's going to get like 22 carries in a game. I still like him. He's easily a top 5 running back play for me at salary. That's kind of where I'm starting. What are your thoughts on
Achane? What if I told you could have Jackson Smith and Jigba as a wide receiver, except get some rushing as well for $7,800? Like, we're taking that, right? Like, he's basically JSN as a pass catcher. He's got 8 targets and 7 targets in the 2 full games. The 2 has 76 and 50 yards, 97 yards rushing last week as well. Bill's defense has been better than I thought they'd be, given all the injuries. Like, shout out to Sean McDermott for that, at least. But I don't care that much. I think that Achane is, like, he's a big part of why I love the mid-range. I would not rank him above Aaron Jones. Probably should go DeAndre Swift because $600 goes a long way this week. So it's probably Jones 1, Swift 2, Achane 3, but being third in that range, given how often I'll be there, is going to be enough. And I would firmly consider him in a, like, my highest dollar single entry lineup. Like, I think he's worth all that to me.
Yeah, he's my preferred play here.
Mm-hmm.
By a decent margin. Tyreek Hill's salary's back up to 85. This team is, like, there's a lot of potential. That lack of touchdowns for him, man. Like, if someone has an eruption potential this week, like,
oh yeah,
Hill's still part of that. My buy low model for receivers still tags him as like a huge, this is not going to surprise anyone, but basically the largest regression candidate you could consider. Despite that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to build around him at 85. I'm kind of lower on Jalen Waddle, just not convinced he's like healthy. Don't think he's going to burn me.
I believe he was a full practice yesterday, which is good. So that's good.
So where are you with the pass catchers?
Hill's under salary, still 85. On throws by Tua, 29% red zone target share. So that touchdown number should be higher as we go forward. Kind of like you said, buying low on him. 85 is under salaried. So if I'm going to spend up for a stud this week, given how cash strapped I am, I want that player to be under salary. And I think that Hill fits that mold. I would like give some thought. Like, let's say I've got 86 left in a flex spot. I would give some consideration to Tyreek Hill over Bijan Robinson, if that gives an indication of where I'm at. If I can't get to Kamara, I already have Kamara in the lineup. Pretty high on Hill, if that helps.
So if you're that high, I feel like you need to build him into your sort of main lineups.
Yeah. I think that my main lineup might not get up there, frankly. And I prefer Achane over Tyreek as well. So that's part of it. But yeah. Waddle I'm a bit higher on than you, $6,200. I agree with like your skepticism. I think that's correct and fair. Because like in the full games or in throws by Tua, only a 15% target share and 19% deep. But like we also do know that he is an objectively good football player. We know he has that 85-yard upside. No receiving touchdowns yet this year. That should regress as well. So 62 for him. I probably should be higher on him than Courtland Sutton, I guess. But now that I think about it.
Yeah, we're going to have to figure out this like 6K range. It's a lot of, we have a couple preferences, but there's Dobbs, Waddle. I'm receptive to Calvin Ridley, who Jim thinks should be
banished to the XFL.
Not in the league.
Yeah.
So probably going to end up being higher on Waddle. He might actually, once again, be someone I build into a main lineup, and he'll get me 57 yards on 7 targets.
Yep, probably. Okay. Bill's side of things, Dalton Kincaid's salary, $6,200. That's still very acceptable, and I am very okay with that personally. Rank Ingram above him, but do like Kincaid at that number. Amari Cooper, 68, a little bit banged up, but role should continue to expand. Khalil Shakir, 61. Keon Coleman, 6,000, and then James Cook checks in at 79. So how are you feeling about the Bill side of things here?
Shakir's target share is back up in 2 games with Cooper. Keon Coleman, though, a bit more appealing from a downfield standpoint. I know Shakir's coming off of like a huge yardage game. It's a little more volume dependent. He pretty much has like 100% catch rate on the year for the most part.
Well, when they're 2 yards downfield, they're easy to catch.
Yeah. But Keon Coleman, I think, is fun. He's got that yardage juice. He can score. He's a good football player. So Keon Coleman at 6,000 or Courtland Sutton.
If I'm using Josh Allen, Coleman, obviously.
Right.
in a vacuum, I might still lean Sutton.
I don't think that's wrong necessarily.
Yeah.
Coleman's probably not getting a 30% target share.
Right.
If Sutton's not getting 30% target shares, what are they doing?
Right. So I will go Coleman in part to help offset a Josh Allen salary. I would go Shakir too, frankly. I think that anyone here is fine to stack with Josh Allen. So I don't mind doing that, but yeah.
Is the real play potentially a value as in this tier here, just for the sake of it? A value stack of this game, like Waddle plus one of the Bills,
could be
to open up
with Josh Allen.
Because if you do something like that, you kind of you can get to Allen.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have your build around your mid range, but you have some correlation.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going HN too.
Yeah. Just go all out.
Oh, you're just plugging in the whole game. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is not what I was considering, but
no, right. I don't mind a receiver with a running back. I don't mind tight end stack with his teammate receiver. I think that's all fine, especially if I think this game goes nuts. So I think it's viable personally.
Okay. I was thinking more like Allen plus Waddle and either Coleman or Shakir.
Yeah.
And then all of the plays we've been talking about, you can kind of go that route.
I'm receptive.
And that's how that's what it's probably going to take to get up to Allen.
Yep. I'm pretty receptive to going pretty hard at this game. And if it means I have to use Waddle, have to use Coleman, Shakir, Kincaid, all those guys, that's fine. I'm good at that personally. I think that Josh Allen's this is probably stupid. I think that Josh Allen's probably the bigger priority for me than Jalen Hurts, given the higher likelihood of pushback from the Dolphins side of things. It's an AFC East game. It's a repeat matchup, which does matter, but Josh Allen also does get tush pushes. I think that kind of is something that goes a bit under the radar. So I think that I prefer Allen over Hurts this week, even if I am very nervous about saying that.
I agree with you. Yet once again, I'm going to go against Jalen Hurts, who is gifted like 12 points a game from just being handed multiple touchdowns. I agree with everything you said, though, with Allen, the overall game environment. I'm just not big on the Jaguars necessarily. Eagles games, they can bleed the clock, ugly things up. I think it's a little less likely in this matchup, even though it is a repeat divisional game. The Buffalo showed up well, and once again, I'm not a Bills fan. I'm just wearing a hat. So
yeah. So I'm higher on this game than there's actually more value in this game than there is in the Falcons Cowboys game. Weirdly,
that's what I was kind of talking around. Is why not go? Because we need 6K receivers, and you can do something like Romeo Doubs and Cortland Sutton. But in theory, doesn't this make more sense from a stackability standpoint?
Probably.
Especially if you play Josh Allen.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
If I play Josh Allen, absolutely, yes. But probably in general as well. Okay. Let's talk about our third game in the bookmakers section. That is the Rams at the Seahawks. Total in this game is 48.5. The Rams favored by 1.5. The Rams offense looked revitalized last week with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. There are too many sounds in here. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua last week. DK Metcalf, I think, probably going to play in this one as well for the Seahawks. So high usage players on both sides of this game. How intrigued are you by stacking this one?
It largely depends on where I am with the Seahawks by Sunday with DK Metcalf. Seeing what was his status for Wednesday?
I didn't practice, but they said that he's day-to-day, so I lean towards him playing.
Playing but full by Friday, or?
With him, I don't care about it as much because he's had so many games where he has not practiced at all and still played and been good. He's a weird case.
Yeah, I can see that. The upside for DK is always there. 8,000 is very reasonable. I just have a hard time going with someone like a Drake London over DK Metcalf at similar salaries.
I agree.
If it's just they're different players in that sense. So I'm actually kind of high on Metcalf, provided that he's good to go. I know I talked about Jackson Smith and Jigba potentially without DK Metcalf. I don't really love it It's just something that I think deserves some attention because he did have good target shares, but don't really think he can ever burn us with his current role. The bigger issue is like Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
I was not a Walker guy. I learned my lesson after weeks and weeks and weeks of Kenneth Walker being great at football. And his role hasn't been great like the past 2 weeks. There's a chance that they trail. He was kind of agnostic to that, but now I don't know if they're trying to keep him healthy or
I think
what.
they were last week because that score was really bad.
It was, but wasn't his role not ideal in that Atlanta game despite the production?
Well, he was sick entering that one. He had the flu.
I know, but we now have 2 weeks of like, okay.
Well, like
What's
they're
going
pretty
on
easy
here?
to explain where he had the flu in one and like they were down huge in the second one. So like I don't worry too much about that. Like I share your concerns, but not for that reason. If that makes
So
sense.
then what are your concerns?
My concerns are the yardage because that offensive line sucks.
Yeah, so like I'm back on being down on Walker for various reasons.
Like
A little bit.
Achane at 78 or Walker at 8,000.
Achane.
And I think by a mile, correct?
Yeah.
I agree. So like I'm receptive to going back, but I want that offensive line a bit healthier before I do so. Because I just think that's what's limiting him. Like they can't run the football right now. Like he's amazing. He's a really good football player, but I want that offensive line healthy. He could burn me because he's capable of like massive plays. That's fine. But let's talk about Kyren because I was a bit lower on him than you were earlier on. So far this year, 89 yards per game. It's yards from scrimmage. Guys around him: Saquon 124.6, Derrick Henry 126.5, Alvin Kamara 120.4, Jahmyr Gibbs 106.4, Bijan 98, JT in his full games 108.6. Like that's just not a lot of yardage for his salary. So even when he scores 2 touchdowns, like he scored 2 touchdowns against the Raiders, still 19.6 FanDuel points. That's not killing me for not using him. He's had one game this year where I am dead in the water if I don't use him, and even 30.6 at his salary wouldn't like torpedo me. I agree with their sentiment that they'll be in the red zone more often because of Kupp and Nakua, but I just like, I don't know. The yardage upside really bothers me with him. That's the key hangup for me.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. If you're not happy with 30.6 though,
well, I said burn me. Like happy, yes. I'm happy with most of his scores. But like he's not burning me for not using him, which is why I don't have a lot of FOMO, I guess.
I mean, how many running backs are getting like over 30 points consistently though?
Like consistently?
Like who's like if 30 points isn't burning you, and
I mean 40 is like burning me. Like
so then why are we ever playing or trying to consider like Saquon or Derrick Henry?
Saquon scored 34 in week 1, didn't he? Yeah, 35 there, 34 there. He scored 35 twice. Derrick Henry, I believe, has a 40 burger this year, or am I off in that? 32, 37. He can bust off. Like, again, Kyren, like 30 is good, and I'm happy about it, but I don't think I need to fear it necessarily. Kamara had 46 in a game with Carr. Like,
yeah, no, I get that. Where I'm coming from with Kyren is his probability of getting you 25 is substantially higher, I think, than like a Kenneth Walker or
yeah, but I'm not using Kenneth Walker.
Right, but there's just because he doesn't have 36 point upside doesn't mean that like because he has that 58% of the red zone plays going to him for the season, his probability of getting us 24 is great. And while we want 34, that doesn't always exist. And so if there's a good chance for him to get us, 24, 25, because he's got even one touchdown.
But I can get a good chance at 24, 25 via Kamara, Barkley, Henry because of the yardage.
Yeah, I'm not like that's not lost on me.
So like, why would I not go there if those guys do have 40 points in the range of outcomes? Because like I can get a similar median expectation via a different route and higher.
I don't agree. I don't agree that it's okay. I don't agree that it's exactly the same median expectation, but Kyren Williams also has 3 touchdown upside
Sure. And he'll score 20 FanDuel points because he'll have 20 yards on those 3 touchdowns.
All right. So you hate Kyron Williams. I
Mhm.
get it. What do you think about the pass catchers?
I like Nakua a lot. I don't know how this happened, but he came off IR last week, practiced twice. He had 2 limited practices, comes off IR, 9 targets, 4 deep targets, 106 yards. Like, what on earth? How did this happen? I don't like to use outside receivers against the Seahawks, but like his role is amazing. I think he's very good. So I prefer Puka over Kyron if I'm going to spend up in this game. Now I'm saving $800 and saving and filling a receiver slot versus a running back slot. So to me, opportunity cost is lower, but I like Puka quite a bit. Where are you on him and Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather go Nakua than Cup. His role, I mean, they just peppered him right away, which you don't do if you're concerned about his health.
He also had 2 rush attempts.
The problem just is, how can I build around Puka Nakua? Would I build around Puka over Tyreek Hill?
No.
We can sit here and say Puka's great, but if I don't have a great way to sort of build around it, if I can't stack, I mean, do we like a single Seahawk?
Metcalf, if he's filled by Friday. Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see many like Puka, DK Metcalf stacks unless we get Tracy.
Yeah.
We just say we're playing Nick Chubb. Maybe you even consider flexing a receiver.
Sure.
But that's so far off the base of like what I think the main lineup construction is going to be that I'm probably not going to be able to do that.
Yeah. If I have 81, I pick Puka over Metcalf, and I like Metcalf a lot.
Yeah.
So that's saying a lot. But I'm cool with that. Anything else for you in this game?
No, I think it's a no QB game, and there's not a lot that we can like certain plays.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot I can do with that, frankly, with how the rest of the slate's going.
I agree with that. So let's instead turn to a place where I think we can actually find some really good plays and guys who are worth prioritizing. That is the New Orleans Saints, because Brandon, Derek Carr, the savior, is back for the Saints this weekend, most likely. I should couch that. He's most likely back. No Rashid Shaheed, obviously, but they also did get back Cesar Ruiz, so they're healthier on the offensive line they were when Carr got hurt. They are going to funnel work to Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara. So talk me through the Saints. Derek Carr is back in the saddle.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago that the Saints looked like they were just going to walk their way to the Super Bowl. They looked unbeatable. And then things got a bit derailed. They lost a lot of games, lost Derek Carr, lost Rashid Shaheed, lost Chris Olave to a concussion, a lot of different stuff. But now they're kind of back. Still no Shaheed, of course, who's out for the year. But, we're, like you said, most likely getting Derek Carr back, and that should change a lot. He's missed 3 full games. This is a divisional rematch, but it is against the Panthers. They destroyed the Panthers in week 1. Carr went for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns on 23 attempts. This isn't about playing Derek Carr. This is about elevating the offense, specifically Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara. They did have a really low pass rate over expectation with Carr under center, about minus 7.8%. Was closer to league average without him, but this comes down to efficiency. The gap, regardless of which EPA metric or any stats you look at, just completely different worlds with Derek Carr and the assortment of quarterbacks they had trying to replace him. On the year, Carr's average just under 200 yards per game, but 7.7 yards per attempt. If you adjust his EPA per play to the opponent level, he's at a plus 0.05. So if he played exactly the defensive level on all his plays, he'd be at 0. So he's slightly above that. Nothing outrageous, but it's enough. And he has a 9.2 yard ADOT. According to Next Gen Stats, the team's EPA per play is plus 0.39 with Carr on the field compared to without him, which is just in like an outrageous gap. 2 is at a plus 0.35 for some context. For like, Derek Carr may not be the best quarterback in football, but he's very, very impactful here. And, when you look at this team with and without, it's a little bit tricky because his active games were all with Rashid Shaheed, who is a very good football player. He was, effectively operating as the team's wide receiver one. That's going to impact efficiency. I don't anticipate Derek Carr to be, again, the most efficient quarterback, but if he can give us league average efficiency and, like you said, funnel targets to Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara, let's go. That's what we're looking for. Last week with Chris Olave, Taysom Hill back in the lineup, Olave ran 43 routes, had 14 targets, 8 of which were at least 10 yards downfield. That was a 33% target per route rate, a 37% target share. He had 3 red zone targets and 2 end zone targets. He had 107 yards from Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler, because I think Chris Olave is one of the most underrated players in football. I think he's very good. And the salary at $7,100 makes him pretty much a core play. We like Aaron Jones more, but across the whole slate, Chris Olave might be the second most likely player I'm plugging into lineups.
Yep.
Alvin Kamara last week, 11 targets for a 29% target share for 55 yards receiving. He had a 75% first half snap rate. Game wasn't very competitive. The other relevant target earners were Juwan Johnson, who had 4, 3 of which were downfield. It was a 10.5% target share. And Taysom Hill had 4 carries and 4 targets as well. But really, this team is streamlined. It's going to be, or should be, Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara leading the team in target share. There is a chance that Taysom Hill continues to pester us to some degree, but we kind of have to live with that. And there's not Rashid Shaheed taking a massive target share and a lot of the downfield work away from Chris Olave. There was actually a game with Carr and without Shaheed last year, and it was against the Panthers. Carr was 18 of 26 for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kamara had 4 targets and 12 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown in a non-competitive game. Olave had 5 targets for 28 yards and a score, but a 48% air yard share. I think the only concern here is that this just isn't close. And that is a concern, but it's not enough to limit me on Olave specifically, whose salary's low enough. Kamara, maybe you make that case, and he doesn't need 10 targets because the game is pretty lopsided. But I'm very high on this offense, of course, from expectation of what we had before, with the Derek Carr injury. Now, though, I just feel like I can play 2 guys a good amount. What about you?
I'll take 2. That'll definitely work for me. So I agree with you that those 2 guys are Olave. I think you said this, but he is number 2 behind Aaron Jones in terms of guys most likely to be in a single dart lineup for me, just because $71 is so low for a guy who could have his role. He's kind of in the Tyreek Hill realm from last week, where Hill was 76, I believe, with Tua coming back. Guy who could get a 30% target share, efficient quarterback, good matchup. He checks a lot of the same boxes, and he's actually a bit lower salary than Hill was for good reason. But he's underrated, like you said. I kind of think that Olave is one of the coriest of core plays of the entire week. I love him.
I mean, he was a love for me on pretty much every show last year. Yeah. Didn't always pan out, but to see him get the target share last week, prove that he's still got that yardage upside. Again, there's a lot of great underlying data with Chris Olave. Putting him into this environment, the only concern is that he only needs 4 targets.
Yeah.
Which is a concern.
Sure.
But nobody's foolproof, and the salary accounts for the fact that there is a relatively lower floor if the game goes a particular way.
It does help that the Saints defense is banged up. That can maybe make things a bit better on the Carolina side as well. I also am very high in Kamara. Him or Bijan, I lean towards Kamara personally, but which I'm high on Bijan, so it's pretty fun.
Bijan doesn't have the game, the blowout risk as much.
Better game overall too, indoors, stuff like that. But I still lean a bit towards Kamara. Okay, let's talk about our second trend of this week. Other big quarterback change for week number 9 is that the Colts going back to Joe Flacco for this week. They're in a tough matchup with the Vikings, but this radically changes the offense from an outlook perspective. According to Next Gen Stats, EPA per play for the Colts with Flacco is 0. It's negative 0.11 without Flacco. Success rate is lower with Flacco, but there are fewer disaster plays, it seems like. So that does matter as well. Rushing efficiency craters, as you would expect, but it's also important to remember that Jonathan Taylor didn't play in Flacco's 2 starts. In the one overlapping game, that was in week 4 when Flacco came on in relief, Taylor had 21 carries and 4 targets for 108 yards in scrimmage. He'll be more efficient with Richardson, but he'll get more targets and won't lose goal line rushes with Flacco. Pretty tough matchup with the Vikings, who lead the league in schedule adjusted rush defense, but I think it's about neutral for Taylor. Bigger boost for me is to the pass catchers. Their pass rate over expected is plus 1.2% of Flacco versus negative 10.2% with Richardson. Flacco had 44 and 38 pass attempts in his 2 starts, so volume and efficiency both get a pretty major kick in the pants. Josh Downs, the guy who benefits most, 28% target share from Flacco, 26% in the red zone, 82, 69, and 66 yards in 3 games with Flacco, where he's played a bunch. Not undersized at 69. He got a big boost up because he had the huge game last week, but I'm still okay using Downs, especially in game stacks with Aaron Jones. Michael Pittman just 1 downfield target from Flacco. His overall target share is 18% from Flacco. Hasn't had more than 63 yards since his back injury, and 2 of those games were Flacco starts. His salary is $5,800. He's fine, but I don't want to get there if I can avoid it personally. So I think this is big time stock up for Josh Downs, stock up for Michael Pittman, but might not be in a way where I really want to use him, and stock mostly neutral for Jonathan Taylor. So where does this offense rate out for you with Flacco back?
I like it more with Flacco back, but don't love it overall this week. Not great offensive expectations in this matchup. Against the Vikings, I think if I'm looking at the running backs across the whole slate, which we'll do in the scroll, Taylor's not going to jump out to me compared to Kamara and Bijan and a couple other names.
Yep.
Specifically,
I prefer
HN.
Bijan above, HN below. So yeah.
My guy Josh Downs, salary's really high. I think he's kind of at his ceiling in a sense. I don't know if he's ever going to get into the 7K range. If he tacks on another good game, he'll probably get bumped up there. But when you think about like his overall expectations, he got 150 yards in him. I don't know.
Darnell Mooney or Josh Downs this week?
Mooney.
I agree.
And a couple other names are also interesting in that range to a degree. So
where are you on Pittman? Because I know that I have a blind spot there where I just can't consider him ever.
Yeah, the lack of yardage, as you mentioned, since the injury, but just in general too, is hard. I think we're going to have to get down in the 5K range for our salary scroll at the end of the show. He's going to jump out more than I want him to.
Yeah.
But I still want to avoid that.
Yeah.
He is right next to Wan'Dale Robinson at the same salary, which is
appropriate. They both get the same number of downfield looks. They are the exact same football player, especially if you look at them physically.
So I think if I like this game environment more, and this is coming from someone who loves Aaron Jones this week, and I really still want to get to Justin Jefferson in some form or fashion, I think I'd have to go with those like Buffalo, Miami receivers instead of Jalen Tolbert or Michael Pittman.
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah,
I adore Jalen Tolbert, and I cannot stand Michael Pittman.
Xavier Legette or Michael Pittman.
Oh man, probably Pittman.
Probably.
If it weren't for the back injury, I'd say definitively Pittman.
Sure.
But back injuries suck. So that's the main hang up with me.
And I'm going to have a lot of Aaron Jones, so game stacks will come into play. But I'm also going to have a lot of Chris Olave, so like the Panthers receivers kind of.
I'd probably prefer Coker over Pittman. He's actually had a couple games with 68 yards, whereas Pittman hasn't had that since his back injury. So, yeah, it's going to be tough, but they're at least more attractive now than they were. And like, I am not off of Downs at 69. I prefer other guys in that range, but like, if I've got Aaron Jones in there and I want a game stack for the Sunday Night Hammer, I'm not really opposed to it, which is pretty big deviation for me from where I've been on him previously. So I think it does make a big difference. Okay, weather for this week, only a couple spots worth highlighting. There are 11-mile-per-hour winds in Nashville for the Titans and Patriots. So all those Calvin Ridley deep bombs from the worst quarterbacks on the planet, they're going to be great. 12-mile-per-hour winds in Green Bay with potential rain for Packers and Lions. So slight downgrade for that one as well. Let's dive in now to our positional plays for week number 9, highlighting each position, the players we are considering on FanDuel. We'll go through our loves at the end of each position as well. So let's start things off at quarterback, Brandon. I still don't really know what I want to do here. I think we've identified a couple more value plays who are palatable. So like maybe my odds of getting back up to Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts are higher, but it's still going to be tough. So where do you settle on a quarterback after having discussed the entire slate so far?
So when I did my own scroll, I bucket players into loves, likes, and maybes. Mm-hmm. This is my initial look, just sort of after I do all my notes. What do I think? I have Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels as loves, with Allen and Lamar as likes.
Okay.
I would kind of feel like Lamar's obviously the QB4 out of those 4 due to the matchup, but that also feels wrong saying.
Yeah, I get it.
So maybe Jaden is the play to save some salary.
$8,700 is Daniel's salary for this week, facing off with the Giants, who have one very talented player defensively in Dexter Lawrence, and he is tremendous. Commanders have played pretty well. Last week still ran 8 times, 52 yards, despite having a rib injury. Numbers overall juiced up by the Hail Mary. But like, I thought he looked really good, especially considering the injury. The Giants, though, are 28th against the rush. So I want to be mindful of the fact they could just like ground and pound them to death in this one. So that's kind of my one hang up with Daniels is maybe they go run heavy because they can in this spot.
I could see that. Yeah.
So I think for me, I wind up Josh Allen might be my quarterback 1 just because I love that game. And when in doubt, use that as a differentiator. He does get tush pushes, similar to Jalen Hurts, not the same rate, but like he had like 16 or 17 rushing touchdowns last year. So like he does get a lot of them still. So I lean towards Allen as my quarterback 1 this week, personally.
That's probably where I'll end up by Sunday. But the fact that I can't really determine, like I'd have Hurts and Allen in their own tier the more that I think about it. Daniels is great. He has not had like the 30-point upside. I think part of that is the fact that his supporting cast isn't necessarily great, even though I love Terry. But yeah, I think it's going to be between Hurts and Allen.
Okay, I agree.
And I guess I'm more likely to stack that Josh Allen game. So
yep, same here. Okay, let's go to the mid-range at quarterback. Like, I think Burrow is worth highlighting.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Kirk Cousins is someone I'll more likely than not have in my player pool just because of the salary savings. And there's one other guy I think I want to ask you about, but give me your thoughts in the mid-range first.
Again, going back to that initial scroll, I did pencil in Burrow as a love.
Mm-hmm.
There is still big time ceiling potential from Joe Burrow as a pure passer. He can run a little bit, but that's never something you can bank on.
Yeah.
If he gets T. Higgins back, I think there is some appeal here, but I really don't have a great feel for quarterback right now. Cousins was a like for me. I think if you're playing anytime you have like 3 to 4 stud quarterbacks and you're playing anyone else, you're kind of betting against them having a 35-point game. Cousins can do that in a sense. We saw it in that overtime game with the 500 yards, but you kind of need the perfect game for him to have that. Not even like ceiling, but we don't talk about floor, but like for him to get 22, he's still got to have a really good like passing game. So I want to not get to Cousins as primarily.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. If I don't love any other quarterback, who's the other quarterback you're thinking of?
All right, don't yell at me. I'm sorry for even doing this. I feel bad about it. But Caleb Williams' salary is 72, facing off against the Cardinals. He runs. What's that?
I thought about him.
He runs a good amount, 47 yards last week, 56 week before. Cardinals ranked 29th against the pass. Last week didn't do well against Washington until the fourth quarter, but Washington's pass defense has been better than I thought they would be this year. Williams playing indoors this week. I think there's some positives here. And for $7,200, I think you do a lot worse. I'm not super high on any of his pass catchers because things are a bit more dispersed there than I was hoping they'd be. I'd rank DJ Moore highest. But like, I'm not off of Caleb Williams 72, given the lack of value this week is what I would say.
Yeah, he was a like for me.
Okay.
I had Stafford as a tentative like as well. And Geno's more on that maybe side if we get DK at 74, kind of outdone on Geno at this point.
Yeah,
a little bit. But Williams is someone who stands out. If you play Caleb Williams, you can do a lot this week.
Yeah.
For saving like 2,000 at quarterback.
Yeah.
You need him to have probably 26.
Mm-hmm.
And it's within the range of outcomes in this situation, in this game environment. You don't have to stack them, but again, I'm relatively high in DJ Moore compared to you.
Yeah.
Are there any bringbacks for him though?
What's Marv's salary?
7, I think.
7's not terrible for him. And then I know McBride 68 is not that far off Ingram. So I think that either of those guys I'd be cool at bringing it back with.
Yeah. Eternal regression candidate, Trey McBride.
He went for a hundo last week. It's great. See, I think that Williams is a consideration for me if I get desperate, which I might. But my love, and it's singular, is Josh Allen this week.
I'm starting to take that approach as well.
Okay.
I think if we listed 2 loves, I'd have a hard time. Like we used to do, I'd have a hard time figuring out the second one.
Yeah. If we don't get any value, my second love might be Cousins, frankly.
I'd probably go Burrow.
If we get T, yes, I'd agree. Burrow would be. Yep, I agree with that. Okay, let's go to running back. We got all these studs. Let's say $8,500 or higher. Who is your top priority? Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Alvin Kamara, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. Who is your top priority in that range?
Kamara.
I agree. Is it definitive Kamara or no?
Pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
I'm warming up to Bijan more and more.
Okay.
But I'd go Kamara and then Bijan.
Okay.
I think that's the route I would go. I don't know if I'm going to get a lot of Saquon or Derrick Henry, which does concern me.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do.
Are you more likely to use Saquon or Henry?
Probably Saquon again.
I agree. I'm in the same boat as you. So I think we're in agreement with the top guys at running back. Getting into we can skip over the lower 8,000 range. We talked about JT a bit where like we don't mind if we prefer the guys above and below him. Not super high on Kenneth Walker III. So we skip down to the 7,000 range.
Are you changing your opinion at all on Jahmyr Gibbs?
I think his yardage upside is better than I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's appropriately salaried. And so, like, if I want to use a guy in that range, I prefer that they're under salaried. So, and I can't quite say that with Gibbs.
Yeah, I agree. But It's something we need to monitor, especially ahead of that Thanksgiving slate. So.
Yes. Okay. 7,000 range. Let's talk about why Aaron Jones is like our player number 1 on the entire slate. For me, it comes down to his combo of yardage juice and touchdown equity, because Aaron Jones this year, 112.5 yards and scrimmage per game in his full games, 50% red zone share in those games as well. He's not Kyron, but he's Kyron-esque in a lot of ways. He's the Sunday night hammer facing off against the Colts, who've had a good rush defense. Like their rush metrics are good this year, but they're not a rush defense I fear by any means. So Aaron Jones, priority number 1 for me. And it sounds like he is for you as well.
Yeah, 92% snap rate last week.
On a short week after he's coming off an injury.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore that. I know the production there wasn't amazing, but the salary doesn't really reflect the snap rate potential. So you mentioned the good red zone shares. He has some yardage upside. So for me, I just don't know if I can overthink this one and have him not be just the most obvious play of the week.
I agree. Number 2 for me, I said DeAndre Swift at 72. I put him slightly ahead of Devon Achane. Let's talk about Swift here briefly because we have not discussed him too much yet. Swift, salary 72. I think he has 100 plus yards in scrimmage now 4 consecutive games. He did so again this past week. He's still losing some goal line work to offensive linemen and to Roshan Johnson, but the Cardinals rank 30th against the rush. So I have no objections to Swift this week. And if we didn't have Aaron Jones, I might view Swift as like a top priority. So where are you on DeAndre Swift 72?
Yeah, I think he's just the RB2 and you kind of take it. 119 scrimmage yards or better in 4 straight games, averaging 133 in that span. I think he's a pretty good football player who went through some rough stretches. So, and the snap rate has been basically 2/3 every game this year for the most part. Hard to overthink this one whenever there's not a lot of slam dunks at the position. So Swift 72 going to probably be the second place I look when I'm building lineups.
I agree. Where does Achane settle in for you now that you discussed everything else? $7,800 for him.
So it becomes, you kind of have to start comparing him to your higher salary receivers, Tyreek Hill, Puka Nacua types. I still have some just overall workload concerns for Achane. You want to talk about Swift losing some work. Achane can lose some goal line work as well. Maybe last week was just a fluke where that happened. We don't have a big sample of like Mostert and Achane together with Tua being, having actual red zone trips. So hard to know for sure. I think he's probably like RB3.5 because I might have to go like Nick Chubb is RB3 just to open up rosters more. So he's behind Jones and Swift.
Agreed.
I would like to play Achane over Nick Chubb, but I think there are a lot of reasons to like Nick Chubb too. Where are you with Achane?
I agree with you where he's running back. I probably go 3 versus 3.5, but it sounds like we're pretty much on the same page with him. So like him a lot, but salary.
Yeah, the difference for me there is you're actively saying like 1,300 in salary is going to running back versus elsewhere in the lineup if you're doing that. So
and that could go a long way, a really long way.
Yeah. Any like J.K. Dobbins for you?
Nope. Seems like things have kind of caught up to him a little bit. Worried that he eventually might lose some work to Kamani Vidal if the rushing efficiency doesn't improve. So he's on the road against the Browns. Browns are not what they used to be, but they're still a defense I respect at least. So not going to get there personally. I thought about Tony Pollard too at 73, but now that I think more about Swift, think more about Jones, I don't think I need to go there personally. I'd rather keep my player pool a bit thinner. Going down to the 6,000 range, you highlighted Chubb 65. We had Chase Brown 63, and if Tyrone Tracy is able to go 62, if Tracy is cleared of concussion protocol, I think he is the running back 1 or 2 on the slate behind just Aaron Jones. Nick Chubb, I'm a little bit lower on him than you, but do agree he's like up there with Achane. So like I think that we're not that far apart on him. Maybe I'm just higher on Achane, I guess. And then Chase Brown is a guy I will use at times because I need to. I feel like at this point, I'll go down with the ship. How do you settle in on the 6,000 range at running back?
What has you lower on Chubb?
Offensive line is pretty banged up, so it's hard for me to expect like good rushing efficiency, and the matchup is pretty difficult. Those are the two main things for me.
Yeah. So he's at a 64% and 57% first half snap rate in his 2 games. The targets have been not that bad in a sense, but his route rate's been 21%. I don't pull for first half route rates, but again, his overall snap rate was down. But last week, a 40% route rate, which you still need to earn more targets and like do something with them. But I think it's a better underlying workload than what it could be, and I just think I'd be kicking myself if I went like Chase Brown over Nick Chubb often, because Nick Chubb could very well be a great football player once again. And I kind of like, so yeah, it's mostly the matchup, but I think Chubb versus Achane, I want to go Achane, but in terms of what it does to the rest of my lineups, it is a lot easier to go Nick Chubb.
Would you rank Achane above Chubb if we get Tyrone Tracy?
Yes.
I agree. But I think that we're in the same tier with.
So we like basically 5 running backs a lot, plus sort of Bijan and Kamara.
Yes. Well, I think Kamara is one of the ones I like a lot. I'd put Kamara as a guy I like a lot over Chubb personally.
I thought you said Jones and Swift were like 1 and 2.
Yeah, and then
is
Kamara might be 3 or Achane. I don't know.
Okay, so we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
But you made it sound like Kamara was actually like your RB2, which didn't come across.
Yeah.
And it's fine if he is. I love him. But if we sit here and say that, then it's like, okay, that implies to me that he's a true priority who you're trying to build into lineups, and that does change things, because probably not going to play like Josh Allen with Alvin Kamara very often.
Yeah.
You can do it, but it's not the most organic week for it.
Okay, so who are your loves running back?
Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift.
Agreed.
And again, contingent, but Nick Chubb or Devon Achane, assuming we don't get Tyrone Tracy.
If we do get Tracy, he's a firm love alongside Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Achane, Kamara, Bijan. I like a lot of running backs.
Yeah, so this is exactly the guys I said, and then you corrected me and said,
well, it's the ordering on Kamara mostly. Like if I get salary to spend, I want to use it on Kamara, and that to me pushes him up the list.
Yes, but as it is now, he's a little hard to prioritize.
He is, but we're not
Kamara or Josh Allen based on what we know right now.
Good question. Because I'd have to use like Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
So Cousins and Josh Allen, or
no, Cousins and Kamara.
Cousins and Kamara, or Josh Allen and
like Swift.
Well, Swift's probably already in my lineup.
Oh, Chubb.
So, yeah, I'd rather go Kamara. Oh gosh, that's stupid. I don't know, man. That's tough. We'll figure it out later. But he's up there.
For time to figure it out now.
I know. Receiver. Who is your top priority in the stud range? Because I say Jefferson 92.
I like how I tasked you with a tough question and you just bail on it.
Yeah. Are you surprised? No.
Of the what's the cutoff here?
Above Tyreek. Well, no, it's Tyreek and above.
I'd probably have to go Tyreek due to salary, but if you made that cutoff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think it's Justin Jefferson by a good mile.
But we agree that
now followed by
are the 2 biggest priorities up here.
Followed by CeeDee Lamb.
I agree. In that same order, where it's Hill 1, Jefferson 2, Lamb 3. Primary reason to go Hill over Jefferson is salary. If they were the same salary, I'd go Jefferson because he's indoors. But I think they're both really fun. Okay. You're a Malik Neighbors guy. Gets a good matchup against Washington, but his salary is 84. Where do you settle in on him versus Puka Nacua and DK Metcalf, if we assume Metcalf is good to go?
Higher on Nacua and Metcalf due to offensive expectations. I do like Neighbors, but the salary is too high, and I just don't know how many 8K receivers I'm going to play who aren't Tyreek Hill. So
agreed. I think that's spot on. So I agree with you on that. T. Higgins, if he plays 75, really good salary. Where do you view Higgins compared to Chris Olave at 71 in this 7,000 range?
I'd still go Olave.
I would too.
But then things would get interesting and try to figure out if I could get up to T, is it worth downgrading at quarterback to get to T from like a DJ Moore type or Romeo Dobbs?
And I don't think so. Yeah. What about Terry? $7,400. We like Jaden. Would you go Jaden by himself, or do you want to lump Terry in there at $7,400?
I think Daniels is still in that territory where like you want to stack him.
Yeah.
He's not doing so much rushing and getting all the rushing scores that.
And we know where the ball is going when he does throw.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. Maybe what's staring us in the face this whole time is save a little bit of salary at quarterback with Jaden. Have someone with big upside in Terry if we get Tyrone Tracy, and that stack could really change things for us a little bit. So,
yeah, I think it could. I agree. I think that's pretty enticing, especially if we get Tracy, as you said. Not going to go Jaden Reed, not really high in Zay Flowers. Adore Olave 71. Any final thoughts for you on the 7,000 range, including Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr.?
No, probably not going to play a lot of Marv despite having Swift.
Yep, I agree with that as well. 6,000 range at receiver. Guys, I want to highlight Josh Downs, 69. Cooper, a little bit high salary at 68. Think I'd prefer to save a bit more on that team. Love Darnell Mooney, 67. DJ Moore, 66. Dobbs, 63. Addison, not really there personally, 62, but I could see the case for it. Waddle, 62. And we get down to the super low 6,000 range. We'll talk about Sutton in a second. But how are you viewing the 6,000 range at receiver?
Pretty much those guys you said.
Who's your top priority of that group?
From exactly 6 to the whole way to 69?
Yes. Well, 61 to 69. I want to ISO ball Sutton.
Okay. It's probably going to. I'd like it to be Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
More likely, it's going to be Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
Due to salary, followed by DJ Moore.
Okay. Tell me the pitch on DJ Moore this week.
Indoors, like the game environment. He does stand out to me as the, I don't know, like 1A. But there's like 4 names. But Cole Kmet's role is scaling down. If you look at 5 games with all 3 of the pass catchers active and relevant, DJ Moore's got a 25% target share. It is really concentrated. I think the matchup's good. I think he's good. So I know that there's some risk, of course, but for 66, I think the ceiling is high enough where he can overperform that. I'd rather get to Mooney just because I feel safer with the whole game situation.
Yeah.
But DJ Moore, I think, is someone I'm okay being relatively high on. He's running routes. He's getting targets.
Yep.
Yes, he has competition, but that doesn't mean that his role's not great because they're not.
And Mooney has
on the ball to 50 guys a game.
Yeah. Like Mooney has Drake London and Kyle Pitts and stuff like that, and Bijan Robinson. So like, you're right. Yeah. I agree. Dobbs 63 only if Love plays. Yeah. And even then I'm not going to like go nuts, but I would be okay with him. Prefer Waddle, like you said. I think that I've talked myself more into that. Shakir and Keon Coleman strictly in Josh Allen lineups for me, unless it's like an H-hand run back or something like that.
What about Cedric Tillman
this week? Okay, you go first.
Yeah, the route rate's good. He's getting downfield work. He's clearly a good football player. Just don't necessarily love the overall game situation enough. Not going to bring it back with any Chargers, and Tillman's the kind of player I'd want to bring things back with in hopes of big plays. And so I'm going to go, I would rather go Calvin Ridley over Cedric Tillman, but I don't think I'm going to get to either as like a primary play anyway, so it's not really that relevant.
I'd rather just be more concentrated on Waddle personally. So yeah, I agree.
That's probably, yeah. That's like
we talked around Courtland Sutton a lot. Let's ISO ball him now. $6,000 is the salary for Sutton. Last week, 100 yards receiving for him. And his red zone role is absurd. 34% red zone share, 36% of the deep work. And I also would note that we kind of meme zoned Bo Nix for being a dump off merchant. But I think he had 11 deep targets, 11 deep throws last week alone in a positive game script against the Panthers. Now on the road facing the Ravens does kind of look like Marlon Humphrey might be back this week because he practiced on Wednesday. But Sutton 6,000, that's really, really enticing given how desperate we are for salary. Where do you settle in on Courtland Sutton 6,000 in the context of the entire slate?
Yeah, I don't recall boxing Bo Nix into anything in particular.
You may not have. The internet did.
Okay. I have Bo Nix with 17 passes, at least 10 yards downfield.
His two highest ADOTs have come in the past 3 games.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. 6 of those going to Sutton. He's getting a lot of work on a per route basis. Nix is kind of fun in general. I don't have it in me to go to Bo Nix himself.
No.
But with any sort of bringbacks, Sutton that really gets elevated, but he's even as a standalone. I don't know there are many realities where we play this game out 10,000 times and he gets like 4 targets.
Yeah.
They're going to have to throw the ball, and they're really throwing the ball to him. So,
yep, I agree with all that.
Sutton or Waddle, though, as a one-off.
Sutton as a one-off. And probably Sutton in game stacks, too. Like, isn't like I'm stacking Bills, Dolphins. I'd probably prefer Sutton, but I'd put Waddle in there as well, and I'll just use 2 6,000 range, low 6,000 range receivers.
Okay.
That's where I settle in there. Okay. Below 6,000, we have Jalen Tolbert, 59, Michael Pittman, 58, Xavier Legette, 57, Darius Slayton, 56. I think that's worth at least considering. We have touching Elijah Moore. Parker Washington, if things break the wrong way. Mason Tipton ran a lot of routes last week at 54 for the Saints. And then I think there was, Jalen Coker, 52. No one is inspiring down here. I think that's the key takeaway. But anyone you want to highlight down here?
Highlight? Not really. I think we talked about the ones I would consider.
Mm-hmm. Who's your favorite consideration down here?
I think I'd have to go just Jalen Tolbert due to the game.
I agree. When to consider Legette, when to consider Coker. Darius Slayton's a really freaking good football player, and they're actually throwing the ball now, even with Malik Neighbors back. Like, he has 100+ yards twice. One was without Neighbors, so that matters. But like, he's just a really good football player, and he's facing the Commanders, who are not good defensively. Like, if we don't get Tyrone Tracy, I wouldn't hate a Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Darius Slayton game stack. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
I think it's fine. I was on Slayton without Neighbors. I think
I tried to talk you out of it very foolishly.
He's got a 16% target share in 2 games with Neighbors back, but a 16.5 yard ADOT. Yeah, I think it's reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Won me a dynasty championship last year, so good vibes all around. Not off of him. Okay.
I don't think we need to get into the 5K range very often, though.
I agree. My love's a receiver, Chris Olave, Cortland Sutton. And I guess Darnell Mooney. What about you?
Olave for sure.
Uh-huh. He's the lockiest of locks. Not locked to produce. Those don't exist. But like, as far as like guys I'm likely to have in my lineup and guys who are loves for me, he fits that to a T.
If I'm being honest with myself, Olave, Waddle, and Sutton.
Okay.
If I'm going to do what you did with Kamara, that would be Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. And Hill over Jefferson due to salary and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Tight end, I can't get to Brock. Brock has an amazing role. He's a very good football player. I cannot get to $7,700 for him. And then we also Njoku 7,000. Where do you settle on those guys?
Love their roles. You can build a Brock Bowers lineup, but I don't know if it's necessary. So probably
Njoku too high salary too.
Correct. We don't have salary. I don't want to. We're looking for salary. I don't want to allocate salary to tight end.
I agree. Does that include Trey McBride 68?
I would love to play Trey McBride. Am I gonna downgrade like Chris Olave to Romeo Dobbs to play Trey McBride? No.
Let me just tinker here quick, because we talked a bit about Caleb Williams and DJ Moore.
Yeah.
If you do a Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, and Trey McBride game stack. Let's dump in some stupid defense at 37. 71-40 left for 2 receivers, 3 running backs. You dink around with like some Sutton and stuff in there. Like, that's not terrible. Not a bad lineup, right?
No, it's not bad. And again, if you're Williams has some ceiling.
Yeah.
You can talk yourself into reasons to being down on Hurts due to passing volume. Allen, divisional rematch. Lamar, just tough overall defense. Daniels, on the road, divisional opponent. And a rematch for what it's worth. So,
true.
Yeah.
Okay. Ferguson, you mentioned some interest in him before. We have Evan Ingram, $6,400. 40% target share, Sam Laporta at $6,300. Dalton Cade.
Do you like Laporta this week? You liked him last week without Jameson Williams. He got a 40% target share.
They had a massive implied team total. They were at home indoors. That's a lot of boxes to check for me at tight end against a team that had just traded its like stud linebacker. That was a lot of boxes to check. He was $3 lower salaried. He's a differentiation.
26-point implied team total.
Yeah, differentiation piece for me more than anything, just because like Ingram is so fun at 64, given the volume. Yeah, I think that's my main thing. And I also like Kincaid a lot, given he had a situation this week that Laporta had last week, except he's not indoors.
Yeah, I think Ingram is the number 1 tight end by a good amount.
Yeah. Like the cashiest of cash game tight ends. Who's ever cash game.
Yeah. I think you just go with Ingram.
Will you use Laporta and Kincaid to differentiate at all or no?
Yeah, I'm higher on Kincaid than Laporta. I'm still not convinced Sam Laporta's that different. 40% target share on like 8 passes or whatever last week. So
hey, still a 40% target share, baby.
Sure.
Pitts 6,000. And then your boy Hawkinson 56. Gesicki, if there's no T, 54. Like, I think really it does come down to I should probably just prioritize Evan Ingram and figure it out.
I think Ingram stands alone as the number 1 play, followed by Kincaid. Would you go Pitts or Laporta?
I like the game environment more for the Falcons.
I don't think this is a question.
Is indoors, wind for Laporta, so I'd probably go Pitts.
Pitts is relying on big plays, but he can make big plays right now. So
yeah, so can Laporta. But anything else for you, tight end?
Would you consider it all Taysom Hill?
No. I mean, like, it's a fair question, given that like they're playing the Panthers and they're going to be in the red zone a ton. So like he could score 3 touchdowns. That's not off the table, but nah, personally.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Any other tight ends you want to shout out? I can't get to John at 54. I prefer Hawkinson over him.
There is a tight end under 55 who's got at least 68 yards in 2 of his last 3 games and at least 68 yards in 2 of his last 3 games, scored in the other game where he didn't get there, and had 11 targets last week.
Hunter Henry?
No.
Was it Komet?
Nope. You passed them.
Juwan?
Nope.
I'm not using Zach Ertz, so I'm not going to use
him. I'm just letting you know.
No, stop it. Get some help.
I'm just letting you know.
Get some help. We're going, okay. Loves me Ingram and probably Kincaid, I guess.
I think Kincaid would be the second name. Or do you think, like, do you like McBride enough where you'd want to bump him up compared to everyone else? Like, you can save 200 from Ingram to Kincaid or find an extra 400 to get
like that's the difference between like Darnell Mooney and the low 6,000 range receiver, and I'd rather go Mooney. So I think I need that 400. So I'd rather go Kincaid over McBride.
Okay.
Do you agree or no? Oh man, he's got like 27% target share in games.
Yeah, I think
28% target share with a 28% red zone share.
96, 51.
He hasn't scored.
No, he hasn't scored.
Okay,
that's why I called him the eternal touchdown regression candidate.
Let's go McBride then. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, maybe
We should go McBride.
Yeah, let's elevate McBride.
Okay.
I still prefer Ingram because the 400 helps, but
McBride's number 2. Cool. I like it.
Yeah, even on a week where I say there's not a lot, but if you just live in the mid range, you can do it.
McBride game stack with DeAndre Swift. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Defense, it's tough to find low salaried defenses for this week. I'm not seeing a lot personally.
Correct.
Jared Goff's a little banged up. Packers are only slim home underdogs. It's windy there. Like if I needed to jump down to 34, I could do it, but this Lions offense is just a juggernaut. First game they played outdoors this year, which helps. But it's tough.
Yeah. On the flip side of that game, the Lions is where I kind of really start to settle in. As like, that's probably the first place I'd want to look.
Falcons 37, same salary, also in that discussion.
Yeah, a lot of, again, you want sacks and turnover potential from a defense.
Mm-hmm. Sacks and turnover potential are possible in the upper 3,000 range in the form of the Los Angeles Rams, given the Seahawks just like throw the ball a bunch and have a beat up offensive line. Geno, despite being top 5 quarterback to ever play the game, I love Geno, does make some mistakes every now and then because he's forced into them. And the Rams are getting a pretty good pass rush recently. Seems like the young guys up front are kind of coming around. So I like the Rams 38 and also like the Commanders 39 because it's Daniel Jones with a backup left tackle. Like, I know there's no Jonathan Allen, but like the Commanders still work. So I really do kind of feel this week like I need to get up here into this upper 3,000 range. Yep. I'm willing to settle for the Packers at 34 just because of the wind, Goff being banged up and stuff like that. But like 38, 39 is really where we want to party, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think it's necessary.
Okay. Any other call outs for you? Because I don't want to go much higher than this.
No, we've got like 3 options in the upper 3s. That's enough for me to rotate through. So
okay. So loves are going to be due to salary, the Lions kind of, right? Or Falcons. But then really it's about the Rams and Commanders, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts for you before we close up shop for week number 9?
A lot will depend on Tyrone Tracy's health.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to exclude the 5K receivers.
Yeah, I'd like to.
I don't see enough ceiling from any of them.
You'd rather save salary with Nick Chubb than dip into the 5,000 range at receiver, correct?
Yeah.
A fair take. I'm undecided where I settle in there, but I lean your direction as well.
Okay.
So I think that we're on the same page there. Keep tabs on the value stuff. If stuff pops up, we're pretty desperate. We'd like to get there, but overall the mid-range is very good this week, and I'd like to be there as often as possible. Do not forget to subscribe to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed wherever you get your podcast. We're with you every Thursday, breaking down top plays on that week's NFL DFS slate. Search for FanDuel Research Podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify is not a thing. Leave a 5-star review if you like what you hear. We appreciate all of you as always. Don't forget to subscribe to this new YouTube page as well. Back here, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on this Thursday, talking to Dubs Anderson about his best bets for NFL week number 9 and the key games there. Subscribe to the YouTube page, leave us a thumbs up, and turn on notifications to get notified as we go live each and every weekday. Brandon, if people have questions for you on X, where can they find you there?
At Gdula13, GDULA13.
And I'm on X at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Want to give a big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Good luck to you with your NFL DFS lineups week number 9. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been The Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.